You're listening to the Not Just Numbers podcast, a conversation with mathematicians on their work and their lives to get to know them and discuss common biases and misconceptions. Hi everybody and welcome back to It's Not Just Numbers. We are finally on a stream of episodes, and today we are joined by Remco de Jong and Ilinca Antonache to talk about study associations. I don't know if you know what study associations are. I didn't know basically before arriving in Groningen, although I expect that in other places there are. I remember in Italy where I was, the student associations were related to the politics of the university mostly. And this is very different. So I'm really curious to explore this with you and understand more what we are talking about. Next to me, there is Jamara.
Hi, everyone.
And let's dive into knowing our guest first and foremost. So, Ilinca, can you tell us what you do and what you study and what brought you here?
So I'm a third-year bachelor student in mathematics and also in physics. So I'm one of those people that do the double degree. But my focus is pure mathematics or general mathematics. Unlike most of the guests that you have here, I do not have a field in which I specialize, so that's a bit difficult to talk about. But I am interested in the theoretical physics side, so that's also what I plan on doing with my master's, since I'm planning on graduating this year. And I'm here as the Commissioner of Educational Affairs of the FMF, of the Study Association. So yeah, that's about me in short lines.
And you, Remco?
Yeah, so I am a second-year master student, and I do applied mathematics, and specifically I do computational mathematics. So that's basically just what you can kind of think of as the coding and things like that, the algorithms in mathematics. And I am here as the chairman of the FMF for this year.
So the big boss.
Yeah, well, that's what they say. I don't think so, actually, but that's...
What type of computation? I mean, computation can mean everything, right?
Yeah, that's true. It's mostly concerned about modeling systems of differential equations is what I mostly do. So that could be, I don't know, a tank of water, things like that, or a model of a heart. But it can be very broad in just any physical system, basically. If you can model it, then you can solve it, basically, like that.
And Ilinca, for you, you said you like theoretical physics and general mathematics. Is there a specific part of this that you like more?
I wouldn't say so by now, especially because as a bachelor student, you don't get a lot of flavor what physics actually is about. You get the courses in your first year that teach you how to do mathematics, and then in the second year, they teach you how to do physics, but then only in the third year, they teach you what physics is about. So there have been some courses that I have more interest in, again, the theoretical part. So I'm not a fan of the experimental physics, going and sitting in the lab and trying to decode what my results should be or should look like. And in terms of mathematics, I'm more of an analysis fan and of algebra fan. I think that ties in a bit with the dynamics of the systems and physics that I'm studying. So perhaps that's also a direction in which I want to go with my master's, for example.
Okay, thanks. And what is it that made these subjects appealing for you? So for you, what is it that you like about this theoretical part of physics and mathematics?
Well, I think that ties a bit with how I decided to study physics and mathematics. When I was young, I liked mathematics a lot, but I think a lot of people already tell you there's not a lot of possibilities to do a third degree in mathematics. And as a kid, my only ideas was I can become a teacher, a high school teacher, or I can become a mathematician. And everyone's around me told, no, don't become a teacher. You're doing it is a difficult degree, so don't become a teacher. And the other part of me was I could never be a mathematician. Like those people I look up to and I admire, but I could never do that. So that kind of fell behind. So I was like, oh, physics sounds like a good idea. Stars and space and cosmology. So I think my dream as a kid was becoming an astronaut. And yeah, mathematician is, well, maybe not that far away from it. You're still exploring a lot of things. So I came here to study specifically physics, and I saw that there's the opportunity to do the double degree with mathematics. But throughout my degree, I realized I like the mathematical rigorosity more than just doing the physics side. So yeah, I think math was my first love, but I didn't have that many opportunities to explore it as a kid, so I just kind of left it behind. But yeah, I'm glad I now I'm confident to say that I want to do mathematics in the future.
I'm very happy to hear that the double degree was an opportunity to actually break this perhaps stereotype or this this bias or this impediment that you had that would say, no, I cannot do mathematics, this is not for me. And now this just served you the opportunity in a place that you can try it, and if you don't like it or you see it's not good, then you can still stop it. And I'm happy that you tried and it worked well. And for you, Remco?
I mean, how I ended up here, I'm from quite close by, I guess. I'm kind of quite close from where Jamara's from, so from Friesland.
This is true, yes.
Yeah, scarily close. And I remember that I went to an open day, student for a day even, and it was for physics. Because in high school, I liked physics, I was good at physics, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I went to student for a day here, and at some point during that day, we had to do some lab experiments or something. And the people there, they were like, oh yeah, this is like a core part of physics and it's really fun. And I was there, I did not enjoy myself. I hated it so much. Because I was like, oh, I'll probably just go do physics because it seemed interesting. And at that point I was like, I'm not doing physics. And what kind of the second best thing, I guess, in that case is math. Because it's kind of, physics has a lot of math, but there's also the physics involved. And that's kind of how I ended up doing a student for a day for math. And that day I was like, oh, this is interesting. I think I could see myself doing this. And then, well, I came here and I started during COVID, which was a little more difficult, I guess. But I think during my second year, I kind of decided, oh, this is kind of the direction in math I want to go in. I took some more courses in more applied mathematics, and it was like, this is kind of more up my alley. It's more also a thing of you still have some kind of physical intuition behind everything, and that's also what I really like, because I see some people do like algebra and number theory, and I just think it's just a bunch of statements and I can't do anything with it, but that might just be me. But when I just have something and I can see actually what it's doing, or I get a result back, like a plot or an animation or something like that, then I can see, oh, this is correct or this is not correct because of this and this and this, and that's what I really like about applied math.
So also in your case, we should thank physics because we have you here, but you escaped the lab and came back to the lab, effectively. Yeah,
so in some sense, it's kind of a different kind of lab, I guess. And it's funny because sometimes I hear some physics students and then they have to do kind of the same things that I do, but they're for their physics degree. And then I hear them say, oh, this is horrible, I don't like doing this, why can't I just do more experiments or something like that? Which is kind of funny because it's quite the opposite of the thing that I had. But in the end, we're still doing the same thing. So,
but that's also why it's nice that we are all different.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then we can complement each other.
Yeah.
So I'm quite curious, what made both of you decide to come to Groningen?
Well, for me, I think it was a choice that I didn't have the opportunity to decide until the very end. So I chose to leave my country because the lack of funding and research in physics, because that was the main degree that I was looking for. So I started looking in Europe for universities, and most of the universities in France or in Germany, they require you to speak the language, which at the time I was not able to. So I had to scratch those off the table. And then I landed on the Netherlands and I saw some great universities here. But then again, a lot of them teach the degree in Dutch. So I was also not able to follow those. And I was like, oh, there's Groningen. I could do that. So it was not that much of a choice. But I think looking back, I would do it like 100 times. I have absolutely no regret of coming here. So yeah, I'm very happy with that, and I'm very happy with my decision.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Romania, so the climate is slightly more different than here. But yeah, I accommodated in the meantime. So
it's different in a positive or in a negative way?
If you look at the difference in temperature, then yeah, it's way warmer there, and also a lot of more precipitation in the summer, also in the fall, which is quite hard to believe considering the amount of rain here in Groningen. But also, I think what I like here best about the climate is the long days in the summer. So when you're out of your exams and then you can just stay up until 10 p.m. in the still sun outside somehow.
I can relate with that.
And what about you, Remco?
Yeah, so for me, I didn't really consider going many places. I mostly considered here and in Enschede, because I told you before about the physics path that I first wanted to go down, but then I considered math, and I was like, there's two choices basically. You can do math or applied math. And I thought about it, and I thought for myself, I think I would like applied math more. There's basically, we have an applied math program in Groningen. There is one in Enschede and one in Delft. And like I told you before, I'm quite from around here, so it was also a bit of a matter of convenience, I guess. And I considered both here in Enschede and compared and contrasted, and I really liked, I guess, the openness in some sense that we have here. That was also already noticeable during an open day and like a student for a day. People are very approachable. You can just talk to a professor and they just kind of treat you like one of their own, I guess, in some sense. And that's what I really liked. So that's kind of why I came here. And that's also kind of why I stayed for my master's degree. You know a lot of people already. I like that. You don't have to start over if you go somewhere else. Because I didn't really want to like go somewhere new, do a completely different life in some sense. You just have to completely start over. And, you know, there's a lot of people here I know. I like the people. I like the program. So that's also why I chose to stay.
What was the most surprising thing for you about studying math? In positive or negative sense, I guess?
Well, I don't know if it's a positive or a negative, but it's hard. It's really hard, I guess. When you get started, I guess you come out of high school kind of fresh and you think, oh, I'll be fine. It's just in computation, I can do that. But I think week 1 or 2, I already decided, ooh, it's a bit more difficult than I thought. Especially, like I said before, I did everything in the beginning of the studies online. And I guess that also made it a little bit harder. What I learned from my second and third year on, if you talk to a lot of people, that helps. And that's maybe also kind of a thing that you could find surprising. Someone described it once to me as a team sport, in some sense. You talk to people about what you're doing, and you think, hey, what did you do? How could you approach this? I think it really helps doing math. So that's one thing that I have found pretty interesting to see, at least, how collaborative it can be.
What do you think, Ilinca?
Well, I think the experience was quite similar for me. Although in high school I had quite an, let's call it, advanced background in mathematics. So for the first half of the first block, I was laid back. I was, this is going to be easy. I know matrices. I know how to differentiate. And, you know, the midterms went quite good. And then the second part of the course starts and you're a bit confused of what's going on. So for me, the first year was, I think, the most difficult part of my degree so far. I haven't started my thesis yet. But yeah, and I think the people in the community here was also quite surprising because, again, the idea that I had about the mathematician is they sit with their own paper and they try to flip the paper around and look at the equation they've written previously. And it is the case, but they do this in a community and they do this by talking to people and socializing and communicating ideas. And I really like that part about mathematics.
Any negative surprises about studying math?
No, we're happy.
That's perfect, I guess.
I promise we are not bribing or paying them for saying these things.
No, it's quite difficult. Like I said, it can be hard, which can also be very frustrating. But in the end, when it then all works out, it can be very rewarding. So then you kind of just forget about the part where you were very frustrated about everything. So, but the process itself can be very hard. I guess that's one negative thing that I could name.
So what made you embrace this frustration, right? At some point, I think one of the hardness is exactly that it's hard, and you have to accept the fact that it's hard because you have to put in the work and the effort and the struggle until you figure it out in your own way. And this is difficult, right? Because it forces you to see your limitations constantly. And so you have to get used to it at some point. What was that made it possible for you to?
I mean, for me, I'm not at all like a very theoretical person. And I remember it was in my second year, we were just coming back just to normal classes and everything, and I had to take group theory. And the first 4 weeks was fine. And at some point, I just kind of lost the whole plot. And I think that was kind of the point where I also just had to accept, hey, it's fine. I should know it, but like, it's not the end of the world if I don't. I let it kind of go, and I just said, I'll just take my time with it. I'll ask some people, hey, how do I guess, see this? And I asked my TA, and he's very helpful. And I guess that was one moment where I like kind of learned to struggle, I guess, because everything before I could at least find somewhat interesting and think, oh, I could use it in this and this. Here, I could not even find a way of using everything, but I guess in the end it was quite rewarding, not for the math, but just for the learning experience, I guess, where you just kind of have to look at everything, in a way of, sure, maybe I won't understand everything, but maybe I'll get something out of it. And it's just even the learning experience can be good for me here. But that's one moment where I've had, I guess, problems or struggles with this.
I don't know if you relate, but something I personally had to learn in this journey is like initially the frustration feels really lonely.
Yeah.
But then you realize all your friends are having the exact same problem.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a bonding experience almost.
You can kind of struggle together in the end, and then maybe you'll figure something out together, and then that helps you forward again. I think that's one message.
Yeah, I think group theory was also the one that that one course in which I still have recurring jokes about what is the silo theory about, what is the structure of the abelian groups, how does it help me to figure out things. And then I think I had to wait one more year until I did course from the physics bachelor, which was called symmetry in physics. So then you actually relate this to the molecules and the particles and the things spinning around, which are not really spinning, but you actually find the beauty and you find the correlation with the real world. And I think, like Remco, I'm also trying to find inspiration and to connect the mathematical concepts with something not necessarily tangible, because you can't really touch the atoms, but at least something that's not just on paper, something that can be verified, that can be tested, and not just doing the proof and seeing that you've got a mistake in the proof and you need to redo it.
And going back to your previous question, Jamara, about what was surprising in positive or negative way about studying mathematics, can I ask you if there was a surprise when moving from bachelor to master?
I mean, the one big thing I have noticed is that people kind of just let you do your thing more, but in both a positive and a negative sense. Positive because they kind of know you can do everything, and they say, you can do this or work this out, and you just make a report out of it, and then we'll discuss it, and that's that. But that's also in some sense a bit negative, because from a bachelor you're kind of very used to some structure where it's, I have a lecture, then I have a tutorial, then maybe I have a homework, and then the cycle just kind of continues. I don't have that anymore. So, for example, I'm taking a course now where we had 4 weeks of lectures, but all the lectures were done by us. And then we had an exam about all that theory, I guess, and now we just have an assignment about it. And I think we have had the professor himself talked for maybe total 2 hours over the entire course. So it's very much just kind of let go, and there's some kind of mutual trust that you can figure it out, and you have some maturity and you can do it yourself, I guess.
Just to clarify, but the professors are still there?
Yeah, no, of course. If you have any questions, he's very available. You can email him, you can go to his office and everything. But like in terms of actual class, he just sits there and helps you out if you need it in your presentation, of course, and fills in some gaps. But like otherwise, he's just there to jump in every now and then, yeah.
If you compare this class with a normal class, would you say you learn more or less?
It's different. It's not that you learn more or less. It's that you learn differently, I guess, because it's also a process of you have to figure out how to do everything yourself, which is a different kind of learning, because most of the theory, I guess, we've already done, and it's just adding a few little things. But in terms of a personal learning, I think you learn more just by struggling in that sense, where you have to figure everything out. Okay, how I'm going to do this. It's a bit of planning as well, but I think in that sense you can learn a lot from that as well.
Do you feel like it also helps with your mathematical collaboration skills?
Oh, yes. And like every time after class, we just had like maybe half an hour. We just talked with the rest of the class, and we just said, hey, how are you doing with this and this? Have you tried doing this yet? And it's just kind of half an hour of we can just interact with each other and just see what everyone's doing, and if someone's struggling, and you can help out wherever you can. And that's, I guess, also something you'll really learn when doing this kind of class, yeah.
On a smaller scale, in the bachelor, we have the project courses, right? Is that a similar vibe, or you think it's still a lot more constrained because we expect that you have still to learn how to do this? I'm asking as a curiosity. I don't really know what it's like from the point of view of the students.
Well, I only took 2 of those courses. First one was the mandatory, the first year bachelor project course. Everyone needs to take that. And I think that was also one of the moments where it's like, oh, I can actually do research, although it was like on a very small scale sort of thing. But I really liked collaborating with the students and my peers, and yeah, I don't think it would benefit me to only have those sort of courses. So in that sense, I'm a bit scared of how my master is going to go. But I think there's something to learn from every course. And that the purpose of those courses, especially in the bachelor side, is to teach you how to present the scientific information, how to collaborate with your students, how to make compromises in terms of who does the most work. So there's something good in everything. And then I took a course project-based in my second year, which involved just working 8 weeks on a project and have meeting with your supervisor like once a week, just to discuss some basic questions that you might have. But in what sense, it was very, very independent working on it. But I liked both of them, and I think it was also because of the topic that I chose. I had the liberty to choose topic. I don't know if that was the same for you with your master course.
I mean, we were kind of only constrained by the overarching topic, and then we just got a choice of what specifically we wanted to delve into. But yeah, and I just wanted to add, like, don't get me wrong, I still have these courses where it's just lecture, tutorial, homework, but it's even there, it's a lot more, I guess, laid back, and you can just work on everything yourself as well if you wanted to. And I feel like that's a big difference between a bachelor studies and a master's.
Something I've personally also noticed is that when you have an assignment or homework in the bachelor, it's kind of very contained within the course. You just look at the lecture notes or the book and everything will be in there. Whereas now if I have an assignment, I need to go actually maybe read papers or look up different books myself and just do more independent learning.
Yeah, that's a good word of describing it. Independent learning, I guess. In a bachelor course, it can be very, very guided and very hands-on, but I think in a master's, it's more hands-off and you just figure yourself out, I guess, in some sense.
And Ilinca, especially with you, I'm curious because you said you wanted to study mathematics, but you were unsure when to physics and so on. So was the expectation you had when you were thinking about mathematics in your youth what you actually found out in mathematics? So did it meet the expectation or it was something completely different, but not compared to moving to mathematics on physics in the double degree, but really from what you were thinking before?
Well, in terms of enjoyment, I think so. But as a kid, or not necessarily as a kid, but just being around 10 years old, you have this impression that all of mathematics is algebra, geometry and trigonometry, and I kind of just did the geometry and the trigonometry part, which I'm also not very keen on exercising with now. But I was still thinking of the satisfaction that I had when like solving problems as a kid and going to competitions and contests and so on. So I think that was also what made me decide that, the mathematician is still the better choice between the teacher and the mathematician, because I can actively do work and actively work on results other than teaching it to someone else. So in that sense, that's also what I'm trying to do now with my degree. So I think I'm very happy that I found the confidence to go back to my own child and meet those expectations that I had on myself. Because quite recently, I actually told my parents that, I'm going to do a master, and it was like, the double degree or just the physics part? And I said, yeah. There's a third option, the one in mathematics. And they asked, my parents are like very supportive of me, and I really appreciate that. So they just asked, but do you enjoy it that much that you want to do a master? And I said, yes. And I said, okay, then it is your choice, and we're happy with that. And I think that also helped me realize that and like be at peace with myself with making this decision.
But what brings them to think that this doesn't leave you to any opportunity? I'm asking as a curiosity because at this point I know a lot of mathematicians from my studies and from after my studies, and I honestly don't know anybody that didn't find a job that they liked. So that's something that I find it very surprising. It's a skill that is, perhaps you have to learn how to resell it, but it's a very resellable.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that you... I guess it's some kind of scary thought of it's so broad, I guess, because like you said, it's just kind of a skill, like the thinking skills that you gain is just very applicable in jobs, but it's so broad that you might also just be like, I have no idea where I could even begin. And I think we were talking about this like yesterday, Jamara,
Yes.
even. There's just so much choice, and you're like, how do I even sell myself? I have a math degree. Okay. But for example, I did algebra. How am I going to apply algebra in an office job, for example, if you want to work in an office? Like, that's just very hard to think about, but it's also just a way of thinking, I guess. And it takes some time to realize that as well. But I think if I look back from between now or high school and now, how much differently I think even about math itself, it's like day and night. And I think that's just also a skill you kind of build up and you have to be able to use.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday, how like marketing is also just a skill, and it's a pretty important one to work on for just about everyone. So I think if that's something you can kind of try to do throughout your degree, that's super helpful.
Exactly.
Yeah, for me, I think the cultural background matters a lot. So I come from a place where I think the degrees that you should be studying are medicine, law, architecture, engineering, and so on. So if you want, or if you like math, you might as well just do engineering and get paid more or have more job opportunities. So I think my parents were also kind of exposed to that sort of way of thinking. But thankfully for me, they supported me with everything. I remember also at one point, I was very keen on philosophy as a high school student. So I went to a contest, and I never went to contests for mathematics or for physics. So I highly doubted that I'll be able to make it through the degree itself. So at one point, my mom told me, oh, but like you like philosophy, why don't you get a degree in philosophy? So in that sense, they didn't have any issues with this sort of like job opportunities bias that I'm hearing around, but I think it was more of the difficult character of math, because if you like, I don't know, the more physics application of math, you can do a physics degree. If you like to be to do simulations in math, why do you apply math when you can do engineering or you can do computing science? So there's also perhaps a simpler way to do what you like, but for me, mathematics was the only one that actually combined all of these things that I liked.
That's fascinating. It's also interesting that you think that doing the other would be simpler, because if you think in the end how much you have to learn, because you are doing 2 degrees, that this gets very fast, very hard.
Would life be easier if you were just doing physics, Ilinca?
Now, I would like actually to bring this conversation forward, but if we want to talk about study association, I think it's time we move to a separate topic. But before going there, I would like to ask you, what do you do outside mathematics or physics?
Other than the study association, I guess.
Other than the study association.
I mean, personally, I just like going out into town, just having a walk. I like cooking. And then people always say, oh, what do you cook really well? And I just think, I just cook whatever I feel like mostly. But that's just one thing that I really like doing, just figuring something out and just cooking. And otherwise watching movies, things like that.
Yeah, can I confirm we've got you a cooking book, and I'm curious, did you try any recipe from the book that we've got you?
Yeah, actually I have at some point at my parents', yes. We tried a little snack. It was very nice. Yes.
Good. I do not have that much free time out of also the study association, but I do love go thrifting. I think at this point I've checked everything on Groningen in terms of like thrifting and vintage shops. I have my own personalized map that you can add to your Google Maps. So there's a map with only the thrifting shops. So people ask me, oh, where do you go to get clothes in town? I just send the link to that map. So yeah, that's one of my passions. I also like reading a lot, writing, like poetry or creative writing in general. I was quite passionate about cardistry for a while. That is doing card, not tricks, but like flourishes. I think that's how they're called. So I also like doing that, but I'm more of a person that picks up a hobby, figures out something in mathematics that they need to like look up now, and they're obsessed with the mathematics topic for a bit, so they just forget about the hobby, and then 1 month later they pick up another hobby. So it's not something very sustainable.
Thank you both very much. So I want to get back to what you're saying, that you don't have much time outside the study association. But before getting there, I really think we need to talk about the elephant in the room. What is a study association?
Yeah, it's this quite mystical thing, I guess. It's just some kind of club. Maybe some people know, like, you can have different associations in your university. It could be like a politics association, like a specific type of sport. And it's kind of just some kind of group. And that's kind of what we do, except for studies. So we're the association from math and physics. And what we kind of try and do is we bring these people together. We organize events, so that could be career-related, educational, but also just social. So they could be having a drink together, going out bouldering, for example, things like that. It's very broad. So we're just the overarching, I guess, organization to connect students.
Well, I think you're the chairman, so you gave most of the...
I gave the most politically correct answer.
Yes, but I'm mostly in charge with the educational part of the association, so we'll put some sprinkles on that, because we're a bit different from this sort of like student association that you're hearing about in the news doing something that they shouldn't be doing. But I think for us, we're staying so in contact with the university that, I don't know, maybe like 80% of what we do in some sort of way. It's tied with education, or career, or that
So
sort of
it's
thing.
really not like this confraternities, Alpha, Beta, Gamma,
No.
Delta in the US, or the sport association where everybody's doing the same sport, but it's really about connecting people as
yes.
part of the
We don't specifically do
programs.
this. I know some associations that have like a little part like this, but it's just like maybe like 15 people that feel like doing that with the people they know. But it's not that we specifically do that, no. It's mostly about connecting students and also just helping out in the program where we can.
Maybe a silly question. The study association is called FMF, but what does that mean?
So that's the Fysisch-Mathematische Faculteitsvereniging, which is the Physics Math Faculty Association.
You said that better than I could do.
I thought I'd pick it up real quick, but yeah, so this was established in 1959. Oh, I shouldn't say that wrong. I hope it's 1959. I think it is.
On 5th of November.
My birthday, actually. Meant to be. Yeah, and that kind of started as this group of people who just wanted to hang out with the people they knew, and it grew out into what we are now. So, yeah.
But then is this an official thing as part of the faculty or the department? So what is your status? You are a completely independent body. You're a body that is funded by the faculty or the department. How does it work?
So we are funded by the university. So we get subsidies from both the university itself and the specific programs. But we are, within the rules of the university, free to do whatever we want, basically. We do interact with the university. For example, as the chairman, I have at least once a year, I talk to the faculty board, see what we can do to help out students. Ilinca has a lot of meetings with the program directors and things like that. So we're very ingrained in the university, but we're allowed to voice our own opinions in some sense. So we are independent. Yeah.
And so then let me go to the question that I want to ask you. How is it compatible with your study work, right?
Yeah.
You said you have, especially with a double degree, you basically, this I found that like this last few weeks, I'm teaching a course where I have students with mathematics, applied mathematics and physics. And I was trying to find a slot where I could put an inspection for the midterm with minimizing clashes. And so I put the three schedules together, and it's basically 8 to 7 p.m., 9 to 7 p.m. every day, completely packed. And I say, how on earth am I doing? Whatever I do, there will be clashes, no matter what.
I think for me, I also see this clashes, but I think it also ties a bit with what I'm trying to do. So we said about the educational part of the association. So for me, that's mostly trying to organize some like practice catch-up sessions for students. So before the exam, they get like a final opportunity to ask some questions. And it becomes increasingly difficult to make that happen and to try to schedule them. There are courses for which the tutorial, it's on Friday, for example, from 1 to 3 before the exam, and then the exam is on Monday at 8:30. And you're trying to put a practice session, but there's absolutely no time at which you could put it. Then you take into account the people that do double degrees or people that might need to research something, and I'm trying to find some accommodation for everyone to be able to attend those sessions, because as Remco said, we're trying to help students as much as we can. Also try not to clash with other courses that are going on, and then finally try not to clash with my courses or my assignments or my deadlines, for example with recording this. But I think at the end of the day it really works out if you enjoy what you're doing, and you need a bit of level of confidence that you're enjoying your degree so much so that you could do with a bit less of a time. So I think that's quite the secret to manage this.
Yeah. I mean, when you asked the question, how do you manage? The first thing that popped into my mind was you don't, which sounds very harsh, but it's like Ilinca said, at some point you kind of just have to trust that you enjoy the math, for example, enough that you can somehow catch up with it. But it can be very difficult, especially in the beginning of the year. I was like, ooh, so much happening, so many new things happening. But I should also keep up with my courses because I would like to graduate at some point. But I think we this year have managed pretty well, surprisingly. I know of some other people who have let basically their studies go for a year and said, I'll focus on this fully because I enjoy doing this right now. But it's, like we talked about in the beginning as well, it's maybe also a learning experience. Like I said, you learn to interact with people, you learn how to plan things, you learn how to organize things. It's still personal growth, and you also have to see it like that. Maybe you won't do as much math as you would like, for example, but you can still get a learning experience out of it in some way.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm most proud of is my Google Calendar. From the color-coded scheme to it is planned up to, I would say, the quarter of an hour of the day. Yeah. So that also means that if something gets canceled or something gets up to your calendar, it becomes very chaotic very quickly. But I think it's also nice that the people that I'm doing this with, so Remco and the other people on the board of the association, really pick up some things when you need help. So it also matters that you have a good connection with the people that you're doing this with.
And this is just the board that organizes and coordinates things so that the work is spread among the board members, or also the other members of the association will get?
So maybe I can shed some light. So kind of how the whole organization functions is we have the board, which is consists currently of 5 people. So we have a chairman, we have a secretary, we have a treasurer. So that's just the people in charge. Overall, people are in charge of the documents and the money. And then we have some other more specific positions. So we have a commissioner of internal affairs, external affairs, and educational affairs.
That's basically like government.
Yeah, it sounds like a government, basically. It kind of functions in the same way. Everyone kind of just sticks to their own domain in some sense. So, for example, Ilinca deals with the educational things, and Annika, who's the internal affairs, deals with committees. And the committees kind of are hopes and dreams in some sense, where they have ideas, they can organize things. So this is just people who want to get involved. Could be students. We have some PhD members as well who are still around and help out. And that's kind of the, I guess, playground where you can just, if you have an idea, there's probably a committee for it, and you can join that, and then you can organize something. So we would like to claim that we do a lot of the work, but I think that's maybe not true if you look at it internally.
Could you give some examples of what kind of committees you have?
Yeah, so we have, for example, both me and Ilinca are part of the Mathematics Educational Committee, which organizes guest lectures and things like that. But we also have a sports committee, work at sporting events. We have a kind of a borrel, which is like this magical Dutch word, which is social drinks committee who organizes social drinks. So it's very specific in some sense, but there's a lot of things you can do. And even if you're not in a committee, we have kind of a structure where if you have a fun idea, you can still try and organize it. You don't have to be specifically part of this structure. And then we still facilitate that. So it's very, very open and free, I guess.
And does the association really only function during these types of events, or do people also just like hang out somewhere?
So they do, in fact, offline and online, as we like to say. So we have a members room. This is in one of the new buildings in our campus. So we're on a hallway with different study associations. You can come by, grab a coffee, grab a tea, chat with the students. Also, there's one of us or someone from the board that present all the times in the room. So if there's like a logistic issue or something happen, you can also talk to us. But mostly people in there hang out between classes for a break, or also working on their homework, on their assignments. I think we had someone that was in an online class actually from the room with their headphones on. And we also have, speaking of the educational help, I like talking about education in case you haven't picked it up. You have like a Discord channel in which you can ask like academic questions and you get all sort of answers, even like something that's not strictly related to the university courses. So if you are studying something else, or if you saw something online you would really like to know more information about it, I think there's someone that can pick up every question in there.
Sorry, I just disrupt the discussion a moment. There is something funny because you said you don't want it to become a teacher, but you are extremely involved with education. And
true,
if you become a mathematician, still half of your job is teaching. So somehow that's not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I don't think high school teacher is is the dream path for me. But in terms of education, it's most the planning of this event. And how Remco said, we're meeting also with representatives from university. So I have monthly meetings with the program director. So for us, that's Alef and Stefan Tren. And then for physics as well. So my educational impact is mostly the feedback that I'm giving and the feedback that I'm receiving, and trying to have some sort of communication between these two parties, the students and the professors. So I do not communicate mathematics to any of them.
But this is very interesting. So one of the questions I had for you indeed is that if you had opportunities or if you are working in shaping the curriculum and how, and then this is basically a direct line of feedback for the structure of our curriculum.
And maybe we can add a bit to this as well. Like I have monthly meetings with every other study association, as well as the student assessor. So this is basically the person who reports to the faculty board what is going on in the university, what students are thinking. And we often get a lot of topics that could come either from the university council, the faculty council, things like that. And they ask for our opinion, like, oh, what would students think about this? And there have been multiple times where I think they have had this great idea where they think, we should do this and this. And then everyone in the room in our meeting was like, that sounds awful. People wouldn't like this. And they do take it to heart. So in that sense, we also kind of have an impact. So we are also just representatives for students at large in some sense.
That's great. Great to hear. And hopefully this is also great to hear for the students that are listening, because now you know that if you want to make a difference, this is one of the places. I would recommend you also to join program committees or faculty councils, because that's another way where you have direct feedback.
Yeah.
But that you know that this is one specific way to affect how your curriculum is going, so that you're not just passive recipients of what happens around you, but you're actually there actively making it better for everybody.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of, especially newer students, the feedback meetings from the program committee and such can be kind of overwhelming and very formal. And having just a talk with your fellow students in the study association is a lot more low-key and easy to voice your opinion.
Yeah, and it's also, it's quite hard in some sense for us sometimes to gauge what people think. And you pick up some things organically, and then they ask for our feedback, and it can be quite hard to somehow voice your opinion, but also everyone else's opinion. There have been times where I think something myself, but I know other people, the majority of people think something different, and then I kind of just have to put my own opinion aside and think, but other people think this, so it's probably better for me to just voice that opinion. But you kind of have to pick that up sometimes as well. Like you said, it can be hard for people to actually talk about things, but sometimes you pick something up and think, hey, so that's what people are thinking, or this is what's happening, and then you bring that up as well. It's a good way of doing things as well. And
so in this respect, how do a random student can get involved with you?
I mean, for us, it is mostly just, for example, like we said before, the committees. But even that, if you think, that's too much work or something, you can just hang out. And if you have some opinions, or you think, hey, this happened, or something like, I think this would be a good idea, you can always talk to us. We have contacts. In the end, everything is about money. We get money to do things as well. So if you have a great idea, think, this would really support students, you can come to us and say, hey, this would be a great idea, and we can always have a look. So that's a way people can get involved and pitch their ideas as well.
This would be coming to this common room or to one of the events.
For example, yeah.
I think there's also a different way to interact, because you said it's a bit more difficult to talk with professors than with the students. So I think one of my favorite ways to do this is the coffee mornings that we organize. So you don't have to be people from the committees. You can just be a student. I don't think it's even required to be a member for this.
No,
if you're a student from the program. So we held this once a block. There's some coffee mornings in which we invite professors, staff, students, and we try to have a laid back conversation of what's going on. You can also approach their professors to talk about your bachelor thesis, for example, your master thesis, or if you have some specific feedback, and you'd be quite surprised of the discussion that this can sparkle. So even if there's only one time thing and you wouldn't want to be involved in a committee or to come to the association, you don't have to be a regular to make an impact. And I think that's also where we're trying to transmit to the students that if you want to voice your opinion, there's always a way to do this. So that's good to keep in mind.
And how do you become a member? You have to register yourself somewhere, pay something,
go to the
or
website, and you could just fill in a sign-up form, and that's it, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
And so if a student isn't necessarily interested in joining activities or events, is there still value in becoming a member?
Yeah, I think so. We also offer discounts on books, things like that. But like Ilinca said, we also offer practice sessions, for example. That's one big educational thing that we do. And those are technically only for members. So that's one thing where you can still, if you feel like, hey, I would like some more support, that's where we can also help.
Yeah, and if I could go back to my experience with becoming actually a member of the FMF, I was also not intending to be a part of a committee or to be an active member, how we call people that are regulars, so to speak. I remember my first year, one of my friends was like, oh, I want to grab a coffee from the FMF. So I said, sure, we can go there together. And there were some sign-up forms. I was like, oh, I can sign up for a coffee and a tea. And on the... back in my day, it was on paper. You could register on paper. So I flipped the paper around. There was this committee interest, so you could fill in what committee you would like to be part of. And I found this committee called Mathematica, which... Remco is also part of. I never expected to get a message, oh, do you still want to be involved? I got, and during my first year, I don't think I've ever spoken in the group chat or coming at any of the events. I had struggles filling in the things, where are you available to meet? So I was not that active at all. So I would say that this sort of intention to become active only comes when you're communicating with people and when you find your own group of people that's suitable for you. So you can make friends out of the people that you're doing a committee with, or you can grab your friends and form a committee together. And yeah.
So maybe as a follow-up to that, because I think it's quite interesting to go from not being interested in activities to being on the board. What made you decide to do a board year?
Well, I think this is interesting for me. So I didn't have that big of a plans to become board in my first year or my second year. So now I'm in my third year. And last year, when the applications were still open, there was this event. I was going to like 2 or 3 events maybe from FMF at that time. So there was a board interest activity, the way it is called. So you get the occasion to speak with people that are currently doing board and to find out more about what they're doing. And last year was about croissants, or like a picnic sort of activity, and I was hungry, so I went there to grab some lunch. I also dragged one of my friends. I was like, oh, but I just want a croissant, but like, you don't want to apply for it. But I was like, no, I'm just hungry. So I think I got influenced by everyone who was there, and looking back, everyone that's now on the board was also there at that time. But I didn't know anyone out of all those people, and I remember I left with the idea, maybe it's not that bad. And I think at that time, the applications were like still open for 3 weeks. And every single day during those 3 weeks, my motivation and my interest for applying for board got bigger and bigger. I was like, yes, this is a thing that I want to do. So yeah, I'm pretty sure this is completely different from everyone's experience with applying for a board.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe wouldn't call it that different. What I hear a lot, and what was also kind of the case for me, is at some point you kind of just get active, and then you say, I'd never do that. That's so much work. I would never.
I always say this.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, I think when I got a little more active was in my 4th year of my bachelor. So I had to finish up like a few more courses, and I was doing some extracurricular courses, but I wasn't that busy. So I had some more time on my hands, and I kind of got more involved back then. And that kind of dragged throughout my first year of my master's as well. So I just hung around a bit more. I knew some people on the board as well. And they, at some point, were kind of influencing me a little bit, because at some point they also have to find their successors, right? And I said, yeah, wouldn't that be something for you? And I said, no, why would that be something for me? I would never do that. That seems awful. It seems like a lot of work. No. And he said, well, maybe consider it. And then I think it was around Christmas break. I was like, I'll consider it. Seems at least somewhat interesting. And then, like Ilinca said, there was the board interest activity, and then you get a bit more in-depth talk, like, hey, what do you actually do? What does your calendar look like? And I remember I asked my predecessor this, and I looked at his calendar and I thought, well, I'll reconsider my options. That seems really busy. I will not be doing that. But then I thought about it for a bit more, and I think, yeah, maybe, because again, I have some more time on my hands this year. I thought, I could just waste my time and do nothing, or I could actually maybe get something out of it. And I also looked at it from like a professional angle, I guess. It's also personal growth. You learn a lot in terms of selling yourself, talking to people, planning. Ilinca said earlier about her Google Calendar. I think if you asked me 2 years ago, did you know in 2 years you'll be an obsessive Google Calendar user? I would have laughed at you. I did not touch a calendar. I said, I'll see what I'll do tomorrow. And now my calendar is the most organized thing I have. And if it isn't, I have a problem. So it's quite interesting how I hear a lot from people. They go from, no, I'd never do that, to actually, in fact, doing it. So
I do think it's quite interesting what you said, how you didn't really see it for yourself, because I think a lot of other people, myself included, just kind of saw this happening for you. Like somehow it just made sense.
And I always said about myself, no, why would I? No, that's nothing for me. And people could say, no, I think it would. I think you should consider it. And I was like, maybe if they think it is, maybe I should. So
I never considered it for you, but we also didn't know each other that good at the time.
And so, getting back to this being active, I think the first contact I had with the FMF was the coffee mornings, and now many years ago. And then we started getting invited here and there for Axioma, for the symposium. Then I started getting my TAs invited for these sessions, for the review of the various courses. And then I was invited because you were doing a field trip to Trieste and Austria, and some years before you were doing the one to Brazil. And I'm impressed the sheer amount of stuff that is going on. And now there are like periodically seminars in the evening with the interesting speaker from around. So there is an literally insane amount of activity that you're organizing. And now that you tell that you have so many committees, I start getting an understanding of how it's possible to do all this stuff. But I'm curious, with so many activities, what has been the most memorable moment for you so far?
I thought about this because you asked us this before, and I found it quite difficult because it's just, in some sense, one big experience, I guess. But if I had to highlight one thing, it was the first weekend and week of the academic year this year. So over the weekend, we had our introduction camp for first-year students, and that in itself was already a big experience. It was very busy, but also very rewarding in some sense, when you can just see everything kind of falling into place, people getting to know each other. That's very nice. And then I remember the day after or 2 days later, we had a pub quiz. And that was kind of, because we had this very busy weekend and everyone was just tired. Everyone was kind of done with everything, or just wanted to take a nap. And then at that pub quiz, everything just kind of fell into place. And I just remember being so happy with how everything went and people having fun. I was just like, oh, great. This is why we're doing this in some sense. So that was one thing that I remember from this year at least.
Yeah, for me, that pub quiz was also an experience. It was also the first thing that we got to organize from this position, so to speak. But I did not go on the camp on that weekend beforehand, so I actually had strength and energy to go through that day. But I do remember because it was the intro week, so as education and also as chairman, we had to go to give like intro speeches to also like the academic advisories invited, so the info sessions at the beginning of the year. So me and Remco were there for 12 hours every day that week, from 9 a.m. from the first speech till 9 p.m. when the pub quiz was over. So it was an exhausting week. However, I think my favorite moment, it was not an event, but my favorite moment was the one we were officially, so to speak, constituted as being born and as doing what we're doing. Because we did this, it was quite evening, we were in the city center. So then we wanted to go have some fun, grab a drink, and some people were biking, some people were walking, and I was one of the people walking. And as the people were biking, there was also a random person on the street singing some music, and someone took a video of that. There was Remco saying hi to me from the bicycle, and I laughed. And I think looking back, I was so happy in that moment, and I look at it, and the very moment of the video when everyone is passing by with their bikes, Dutch culture, also the music stops from the guy. So that was perfect synchronization, and I think that really explains how board is like. Everything just kind of falls into place so randomly, but also so beautiful. Also because I had an exam the day after, but leaving that aside, but in the moment you feel so happy. And I think that also what Remco said when we had the pub quiz, we were so happy, and I think that's all that matters in the end.
Jamara, you're also involved with the FMF, right?
Yes, that's right. I'm also in the Mathematica committee.
So what's your moment?
What's my moment? I think last year I really started being a bit more involved in the committees and such things. And maybe it's a bit cheesy to pick our own event, but we always do the yearly integration competition. I think for me that was really a moment where I thought, wow, it's actually super fun to organize these things, which should not be a surprise because I always love organizing things, but regardless. And our committee is super fun. It's actually just a close group of friends kind of finding that as something I can do in life was really, really enlightening and made me very happy.
And staying on this tone, what was the most unexpected thing that you learned by being in this association?
Ooh. I wouldn't say I've had super surprising experiences yet, because our committee is kind of, we meme around a lot and somehow still get a bunch done. It's not that serious. Yeah. This year I'm chair of the committee, and I've had some challenges just learning how to do that, because different people have different ones and you need to kind of balance that. But I think that's a great learning experience.
So you also keep yourself very busy with program committee, chairing that committee.
Promo
we have
team.
a podcast.
Yes.
The promo team, yes.
Yes, studying.
How do you manage?
How do I manage? Hopes and prayers, lots of caffeine, lots of naps. Yeah.
So let me go back on this other side of the table. What was the most unexpected learning for you?
Oh, I mean, what I've learned is that a lot of people think very differently than you do every now and then. So I've had this mostly when talking to other associations and other people involved with the university. It can be quite difficult to somehow see their viewpoint. And that's one thing that I've learned, is you have to kind of adapt to other people sometimes. And that's one thing you learn a lot.
Yeah, I think Remco had a very good point. So I think that's also for me, but in a more unserious note, it was the sheer amount of emails that you get. And you would think that mostly, I think that the secretary does, right? They look at the emails and they reply, and they get another one and they reply to that one. But so many emails are specifically addressed to you. And I have people, for example, from mathematics that ask me, oh, what events from the association count towards the career portfolio, for example, that you need to fill in as a bachelor student. So you need to go to some career events in order to do some work. I don't know the exact purpose of that, but so I get emails from that as well. Then I get emails from professors. So there's so many emails, and it is so quiet in the weekend. And then on Monday at 9 a.m., you get 30 or maybe 40 emails. And your fellow board members, for example, they also schedule their email at 9 a.m. on a Monday. So I think I'm going to give up on setting my alarm on Mondays, because the notifications just do the job at this point.
Yeah, welcome to the job of a professor. Do you have a frequently asked question on the website where this information is written? The one about, for instance, what is suitable for the portfolio?
That would actually be a smart idea.
Now, I must also say that our website is a bit of a mess overall, but that's one thing that we want to.
We're opening application for someone that can take care of our website.
So if somebody knows how to deal with websites, you know whom to talk to. We will put a link on the FMF website so you can see how bad it is on the show notes.
Thank you.
I actually have a question for Marcello, because of course there's a lot of events that involve professors in some way, either guest lectures or the coffee mornings. Do you have any other fun ideas for events we could do that involve staff somehow?
Oh, that I need to think about, because you're already doing a lot of things. Right now, I don't know what else, but let me come back to you with that. I'll take it as homework.
Yeah. What I hear a lot also from professors is that they kind of like that we have this kind of community, I guess. And they often say like, oh, that's so cool. Are we allowed to come? And then we say, yeah, sure, why not? Like, it's kind of just building one big community that could be students, but also staff, right? That's also a big thing of studying. It's talking to people, and it could be scary maybe to approach a professor about some question you have, or like a thesis or something like that. But if they just kind of are there, also just having fun and whatever, it could also lower the barrier to do those kinds of things. So with the coffee mornings, and like you said, we invite them to symposia and lectures and things like that. It's also very nice for them to show up and come. And
it tends to be very friendly. Like my experience with both the Axioma Symposia and the coffee morning, which is the places where I've been a bit more often, is that it's a nice opportunity to just informally sit together and have a laugh and talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Something I personally think would be really fun. I know a while ago for physics, rather than a coffee morning, there was a borrel. I think that would be super fun to do for mathematics too.
We'll take it into account. I know the Chemistry Association at some point got, I think, one of their Italian professors, and they made pasta with him.
That's amazing.
That's fun. I mean, I'm up for that. If you want.
We'll write it down.
We will write the date in our Google Calendar.
If we find a proper oven, I'm also happy to do pizza together.
Okay, good. We'll keep it in mind. That sounds pretty fun, actually. But
so that could actually be fun.
That's one thing where I was like, oh, that's really funny, actually. But yeah, that's also the kind of things that we also kind of do. We just do silly stuff where, it doesn't have to be too serious and we just have fun.
So related to what we were saying about the different interaction that you have with lecturers, which is something that I really appreciate about these events, I'm curious if being part of the association changed your general way of interacting with them, with us.
I think like a lot of this work, I guess, is just talking to people. And at some point you kind of have to overcome maybe some fear that some people have, like, oh, professors are scary, and oh no, they probably think what is this guy doing here? But at some point you kind of just overcome it, and then you also know that they're very up for talking to you and getting involved. So I guess in some sense I've just changed the way I look at them every now and then. This differs per person, of course, but I've thought of them as just more approachable people that are willing to help and also get involved and like be up for fun things every now and then, because they also hope that the students are having fun and things like that. So yeah, that's one thing that I've had.
Yeah, for me, I interact with professors in a whole different light than you do. I think it's a bit different the further you go away in your studies, because as a master's student, you've already had, for example, your thesis supervisors that you were like quite close to. But for me, for example, the program directors and the program coordinators, they're also professors, but at the end of the day, they're also humans. So when I'm talking to them from the perspective of the study association, we're sort of in the same food and we're like talking in the interest of the same people. So it's not that in 2 weeks they're going to grade my exam or my assignment, and I think that also gives me a bit of more confidence on that. For example, I don't know if you have like a discussion or an oral examination with one of those professors, or even with a professor in general, you know that they're approachable, that they're people just like you, that it's normal to make mistakes, and I think overall it just gives you this sort of confidence. And as I've said, in my first year I was not that involved in studies or in the study association, so this kind of built over time for me. And yeah, I think you only have positive aspects that develop from this.
So you see this really leaving the boundaries of your discussions as part of FMF, but also when you talk with us outside your role and in class and so on, that has changed.
Yeah, I'm happy that I can pass by someone like a professor in a building and I can say hi or hello to them. And there are two manners with that. First, that you actually interact with the professor outside of your class and it's not something only related to your course. But also that it is so informal that you can say hi or hello to them and you don't get an email saying, oh, you should address me like this or like that.
I mean, I've had a couple of weeks ago, actually, I was talking to someone for a possible project. And the first thing he asked was, oh, you do this and this with the study association. Like, oh, that's so cool. What do you do? Like, how busy is it? And, oh, I have some ideas. And that's also just kind of fun to hear, right? Because they like actually like are interested and they also want to help out and they have nice ideas as well. And I think that's also just a nice thing to know that they also like actually like in some sense care about what the students think and like what they do and things like that. That's also nice to feel every now and then, I guess. And then it's not just someone dumping information on you, but actually like also like interact more.
And I think someone told me once, might have been you, might have been someone else from the board, that a lot of lecturers don't actually know how many things we do. For example, we also go to graduation ceremonies. So on behalf of the study association, when someone is graduating, we go in and we offer a small gift. So it's also something that you wouldn't think a study association does. And we had occasions where we interact with the lecturers and we said, oh, we didn't know that you're doing the practice sessions or the textbook discount or the integration competition. So I think for them it's also nice that they get to see us more of educational and like a support association rather than to go back to the beginning, the student association. So there's benefits on both sides, I'd say.
I think I relate a lot to what you were both saying, doing the program committee and the promo team, especially what Remco said, that they really care and not just about sharing their knowledge, but actually about like us students as people. That's made me a lot more comfortable just existing in class, basically.
Very, very nice to hear that. And I hope that this is also an opportunity for everybody listening to consider that, just getting involved with the other students.
Yeah, that's also like, I guess what the most important thing is that we try and achieve is just people getting involved, getting to know people. It doesn't even have to be that you actively do something, but even if you just show up every once in a while, that's also very nice. Maybe an example of that is just, I know a lot of people normally don't really, for example, come to the educational events that we have maybe, but we try every block at least, so that's every 8-ish weeks, we try and organize like a board games evening. And there's a lot of people there that normally don't show up, but they enjoy those kinds of things. And then there's a lot of people like them that maybe don't show up normally, but they just find this one thing very fun and they show up every now and then. And that's also just important, at least to me personally, that they also like have their own thing that they can enjoy and that we can help in that.
A board game evening with the lecturers could be fun.
Yeah, we also
That's
thought
also
about
a
this,
good
I think.
idea.
Yeah.
We will note all of these ideas down.
But yeah, so in general, you just really care about creating a space for everyone, I
Yeah.
suppose. What do you do in terms of inclusivity?
First, we have a committee for that, of which Remco was a member. So we promote inclusivity, and I think we like to think of ourselves as a very open-minded and supportive associations, and we never had issues of being regarded as you don't speak enough English, or you're speaking in Dutch, or you're not. I don't know how to express it. You don't interact with the international students, or you don't participate in this process of internalization. That's a long word. But yeah, we have events also for that. So about neurodiversity, we had people talk about it. We had workshops on social security, for example. We had an event, or we're going to have an event with also some stuff, the Women Plus lunch that's also happening at university. So maybe Jamara can talk a bit about what that involves.
Yeah, so there's the Women Plus lunch, which is just a lunch where both female staff members and students can come and share their experiences. It's also open to non-binary folks or maybe men who want to learn more. And it's just a very welcoming, low-key environment. And soon there will also be a sort of talk event where one staff member and then one student, being myself, will give a short talk about their favorite math topic.
Yeah, I guess that's the most important thing. It doesn't have to even be like events or things like that, but what we just try and do is just make a very open community, I guess, where everyone's just welcome regardless of who you are or what you do or whatever. I think that's the biggest important thing that we do.
Beautiful. And on this positive note, then, let me thank you all very much. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And let's meet the next time. Please share this episode with your friends.
Thank you, everyone.